right. Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode of The Nest. That is the New England Sports Talk podcast. Obviously, we had a very eventful week where we see the Boston Celtics now down 2-1 against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Red Sox are playing a lot better, and we'll also talk a little bit about the Bruins, who lost to the Carolina Hurricanes last Saturday, ending their season. So we'll just kind of discuss their overview. But joining me for today's episode are Anirban Chakraborty and Rohan Venkatesh. How are you guys doing?
Good to be here as always, man. Disappointed about the Bruins, but good to see that the Celtics are in the Eastern Conference Finals, and good to see that the Red Sox are doing better. So as we head into summer, we'll see how the rest of the things go. But mixed bag, but we'll take it as we go.
Yeah, also good to be here. It would be nice to have had this discussion on the back of a Celtics win yesterday, but I'm sure we'll talk about it. Plenty of playoff basketball to go, and yeah, glad to hear your thoughts on other sports too.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Celtics first. I mean, obviously, Game 3 yesterday, 109-103 loss to Miami at TD Garden. I mean, I'll go first. I mean, this was a very unacceptable performance by the Celtics. I mean, they were just very sloppy with the ball, 23 turnovers. Jason Tatum played very poorly, 3 of 14, only scored 10 points. I know he got injured, but even prior to his injury, he was not playing well. The Heat were without Jimmy Butler for the entire second half after he had a knee inflammation. So Miami really was sort of like kind of an underdog, the whole situation, especially after Game 2 where the Celtics won that by 25, but just very sloppy. Tatum had 6 turnovers. Jaylen Brown, 14 of 20, did score 40 points, and he was great late, but he also had 7 turnovers. Just too many turnovers. And they also shot 23 of 30 from the free throw line. And so they missed 7 free throws. There's a lot of opportunities for them to win this game, and they just fell flat. So it's a very disappointing performance.
Yeah, the bad shooting percentage, bad free throw percentage. I mean, all that really plays into it. I'm surprised that the Celtics were even able to get it close that late. But as you said, that's wow for the Heat, and that's without Jimmy Butler. And of course, the Celtics playing at home. But just seeing them get into that ginormous hole really, really early on, it was like, oh man, here we go again. But at the end of the day, though, I think I've said in the past that this team like lives and dies by Jason Tatum. Not to say that there aren't other good players on the team, but Jason Tatum didn't have a great game last night, and I think it showed pretty much for the rest of the team. And that's just how it unfolded, and we're gonna have to hope that they can tie it up in Game 4. Still got another game in Boston before having to head down to Miami again. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, the first quarter, it was 39-18, which was just inexcusable. They were just very sloppy with the basketball, and they just were very careless overall. Like, I mean, Bam Adebayo had a monster game, 15 of 22.
I mean, not even just
points.
last game, like the third quarter of Game 1 was like something like really, really insane. Like I think it's like one of the biggest margins that anyone's been outscored by in a quarter. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers.
I mean, that was 39-14, and this was 39-18. So essentially, Game 1 and Game 3, basically Miami scored 39 points, and the Celtics basically got absolutely blasted by Miami in those quarters.
So I guess as you said, there were a lot of opportunities, and this is far from over. But right now the wounds seem self-inflicted. Not to say that Miami's not a good team, but I do think that there are a lot of loose ends that the Celtics need to tie up, and as you said, like turning the ball over, just getting those free throws down. Because I mean, even last night, right? Just if they had made all this, if they made a bunch of free throws, then the situation wouldn't be as such, right? It comes down to something as simple as that. But overall, like when other areas of the game are sloppy, it kind of bleeds into other areas as well. So just not a great performance last night. But what is kind of a silver lining is that despite such a bad performance, that it was even that close to begin with, which means that this team has potential, and that they just got to improve those loose ends. And I think that this team is beatable. Miami is a beatable team. That's not to say that Miami is not good, but they are beatable. And it's just it's up to the Celtics to decide their own fate at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, it was just a really strange game. I don't think I've seen any playoff game that the Celtics have played where they just had so many of these kind of individual mistakes going on. And it was just really interesting because you look at Jaylen Brown, who of course was having a really torrid start. He had 7 turnovers in the game, and yet he finished with 40 points, leading our team. But when you look at kind of the collective performance for him, for example, it just wasn't. It still was lacking a bit in that regard. And I think we also do have to give credit. I know you mentioned Bam Adebayo having a big game. He of course had 31 points. If you look at him throughout the game and in one-on-one situations and transition, he was really doing it all. I mean, he had some really nice assists. He finished tied leading with 6 assists really in the whole game. And it was really difficult for the Celtics to guard him, whether it's Al Horford or Jaylen Brown. In multiple situations, we just saw him getting in one-on-one positions in the paint and just scoring. So I think that's a problem for us. And I think I think this game was also a good example of how sometimes the stats are maybe not telling the full story here. I mean, the Celtics had 10 rebounds more than the Miami Heat, but the reason they had 10 more rebounds is because we turned over the ball like 20 times, which gave them an extra like 20 possessions. I mean, the Heat finished with 90 shots. We finished with 70. The deficit of 20 shots. I don't think I've seen a game where the Celtics were like outshot by such a margin. So I'm just really hoping to chalk this up to kind of a one-time strange performance. I really don't know what else to make of it because this isn't something I've ever really seen from us.
Yeah, it was just uncharacteristic, right? It just wasn't the Celtics team that I've been used to seeing throughout this year, particularly not in the second half of this year, because that transition from the first half to the second half of the season, when the Celtics were mediocre at best, not doing so great, to basically being on fire, it's a lot of that just came down to the superstars, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, living up to the mark and taking care of the mechanics, right? And last night, I just didn't see a lot of that. I kind of felt that they're kind of slipping back into some old bad habits that I kind of saw like early on in the season, where you just kind of like not making free throws and like making some bad shots and just not really being able to get control of the ball and really be able to control the pace of the game. I would like, as Underbun said, I would hope that this is a blip, because this is not the team I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's just kind of disconcerting, just sort of like after game 2 to sort of see them sort of collapse like this. And I hope that they can bounce back in game 4. Like we saw it against Milwaukee. They went down 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, but they were
And maybe it's a good thing they
series.
lost because they nearly won despite all of this. And if the Celtics
Yeah,
had
but
won,
I mean, that was without Jimmy
then a
Butler.
lot of these issues would have been buried under the it would have been buried.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Jimmy Butler didn't play the second half though, so that definitely contributed to the comeback. But like at the same time, like Jimmy Butler also in game 3 specifically didn't make as much of an impact when he was playing compared to Bam Adebayo. Like even when Butler was on the floor in game 3, Bam Adebayo was probably the best player for the Heat in game 3. That doesn't mean that Butler isn't the best player for the Heat. He is. But in game 3, I thought Adebayo was definitely the star overall throughout the whole game. So, I mean, that's what's sort of like a little bit concerning to me, but like I'm hoping that the Celtics bounce back. Like Tatum had a dreadful game 3 against Milwaukee too, and he bounced back pretty well for the last 4 games of that series. I think overall, like I'm still optimistic on the Celtics. Like they've shown that they're a resilient team, but Rohan, you're on mute. But like,
but
I'm just
by the way,
saying,
that was an epic Game 7 victory, by the way, because like last time we were on the air was like the day before that game, and
like Grant Williams, right? 7
yeah.
threes.
Yeah. So I know it's been a week since then, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean they're a good team, so like that's why I'm just hopeful that like they can kind of overcome any of the shortcomings they had in this game, because they're good enough. I've said this repeatedly on the air now. They're good enough to win a championship, and I don't know like the next time it'll be like they'll be this close to a championship. So I mean we always think like wait till next year, but like you don't want to be like the Phoenix Suns, right? The Phoenix Suns were in the NBA Finals last year. This year they were the 1 seed and they lost in the second round to the Dallas Mavericks. So just because you're a great team and you have a great regular season the following year or years, you don't know what's going to happen. So you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get. And this is like such a great opportunity for the Celtics right now. So that's why I feel like anytime they lose a game like this, it just stings a little bit more than it would for like another season, just because the opportunity is there for them to take. So I just hope that they can capitalize on it. So yeah, I mean, I think they should win game 4 and bounce back, but it was a very disappointing game 3. I'm not going to mince words. Like this was probably like compared to like this was almost like game 5 level of disappointment I had against Milwaukee. Like this one just sort of it just stung a little bit more. I think it was just they played so sloppy, and like considering like everything that happened in game 2, it almost like kind of felt like it was all reversed again. So I don't know. I'm hoping they can bounce back, but I am a little bit anxious going into tomorrow now. Like I can't really say like I mean I hope that they can win, and maybe like I'm just sort of optimistic, but I don't know. I don't know what else to say at this point.
Yeah, I do hope that. I think I've said this before. I know with the Patriots against maybe the Colts or the Bills in the regular season, I kind of hope this is like the one game where the Celtics just air out every possible mistake that they can make into one game rather than spread it out over a lot. I mean, when we look at that, just the final minute of the game, even in the fourth quarter, this was when the game was within like 6 points, like a 2-possession game. We had Grant Williams have a pass stolen by Kyle Lowry. We had a foul by Marcus Smart with like 10 seconds on the shot clock, 48 seconds left, that really kind of took the wind out of our sails. There were just multiple kind of like, again, there were just multiple kind of maybe individual mistakes made, some missed jump shot by Jason Tatum with a minute to go. It was really one of those games where to be honest, we didn't really deserve to come away with it with anything, but we were still in a position to do that. We were down 6 with like a minute to go.
They were down
So
by 1 actually too, because Jaylen Brown hit the 3, but then Strus hit another 3 to make it a 4-point game.
right, and then after that we couldn't really come back. But that wasn't really. I'm talking about maybe the last like minute, I guess. Like
Yeah, the
last
last
minute or
minute
two.
was like really sloppy, but by then I had already kind of realized that they were going to lose the game because it came down to free throws, multiple possessions.
I mean, yeah, but what my point is still like, we had that inbound pass, like just really basic things like that, which just didn't. It was just like players like Kyle Lowry on the Heat were just a step or two quicker in that game, really. So yeah, I don't really. It's hard to say again what happened. I want to see what happens in Game 4, which is obviously a must win for us because we're gonna be down 2-1. Where have we seen that before? Just the last series. So I really hope that they're coming away from this just thinking like, with that need to improve, they need to really fix some of these sloppy things because when they actually play cohesively, I mean, uh, like we all said, we know what this team can achieve. It's just that can they put this game behind them and remove some of those sloppy aspects.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about Game 4? Do you think the Celtics will win if you had to predict?
I would think so. Playing at home, they have a benchmark, right? They can look back at all their mistakes from game 3, and a lot of it was preventable. And this isn't game 3 was not the team that I'm used to seeing, and I know that they can do better. And if they don't win game 4, then I guess at that point they don't really deserve to win the series at that point.
Yeah, I do. I mean, of course, I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic at the home game and stuff. I do wonder if I'm hoping Rob Williams will be back for Game 4. I think he's still day to day right now with that knee soreness issue, which kept him out of Game 3. It would be really nice to have him back. I think we really missed having a player like him in the presence, especially. I mean, yeah, like in the yesterday's game, right? Grant Williams and Marcus Smart both fouled out late in the game with 6 fouls. And of course, by then you could say the game was already kind of out of hand by the time Marcus Smart got fouled out. But it just goes to show. I mean, the Celtics have had some foul troubles across really both series, like the Bucks and the Heat. It's just that in this one, this was really the first time we had 2 kind of key players foul out. So that is actually something I'd say we really need to look for. That this team does have a tendency to really rack up fouls on important players. And that's why it's really important to have a player like Rob Williams too, to have an extra kind of like really important first team caliber player so that you're really dividing the defensive duties between them.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think, okay, I guess if I have to make my prediction, I'll say like based on what I've seen from the Celtics all season, that they should be able to win Game 4. But I don't know. It's always kind of tough. I mean, I think they've shown the track record, but
I guess they should win because I've been kind of pessimistic in the past because last week I think I predicted that the Celtics would win Game 7. I believe I said it was 115 to 112 when in fact it ended up being a blowout. So If that's any benchmark, then I guess that they should do better than what I say that they're going to do. But take it for whatever you will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Celtics just, I mean, I think they still have the fundamentals to be a great team. So I think it was just a very sloppy effort overall. And I hope that they can work on it today, yesterday after the game, and then today. And hopefully Williams is back. Obviously, I know Smart is also kind of banged up too. He hurt his ankle, and I know he was able to play, but I just hope that the Celtics can be kind of as close to full strength as possible. To see like what happens. So we'll have to see then. It's a kind of a tough situation right now, but I mean, the Celtics have shown that they are resilient and can bounce back. So yeah, that'll be our Celtics talk then. Let's go to the Bruins now. Just kind of a quick kind of recap of the season. Obviously, they lost Game 7 to the Carolina Hurricanes 3-2 last Saturday. Lost the series 4-3. Home team won every game in that series. I'll just go give my quick I'll give my quick thoughts on the series. I think overall the Bruins were I don't know. I think once again this season, like for the Bruins, was very similar to pretty much most of their seasons since 2011 when they won the Stanley Cup. They basically had a lot of good showings overall, some kind of disappointing showings, and then in the end, their season came to an end to a team that was either just playing better than them at the moment or just better than them all season. I think this was sort of a team that was just better than them, like talent wise, Carolina. So
yeah, I would say that this series was definitely kind of a mixed bag, right? Because during the regular season, Carolina, they pretty much routed us. It wasn't even close. The fact that we were able to take them 7 games, I guess, is some positive you can take from it. But given the fact that the home team did win every single game, usually home ice doesn't matter in hockey very much, but it did prove to matter very much in this series. And Bruins just weren't able to get a game in Carolina. And when you're up against a hot goaltender, and of course with Swayman stepping in Game 3 after having after the Bruins dropped the first 2 with Ullmark in net, it appeared that the series was starting to kind of take a little bit of a turn. But at the end of the day, the way that Carolina was just playing, just the offense that they had, pretty much all 4 of their lines were performing, not just performing, but I would say outperforming. And when I saw that team in Game 7, I really thought that this team probably has what it takes to go all the way. That's how good Carolina looks right now. But
you think they can beat Tampa?
I think they can. I think they can. Tampa's definitely I mean, they prevailed over Toronto. Of course, I would say that was probably a little bit more of a choke job on Toronto's part though. But credit to Tampa, they're hanging in there. I mean, they've shown signs of fatigue, but they're still hanging in there and playing like the champs that they are, at least as of now, unless a new one gets crowned. But given all of that, though, if you look at the Bruins' overall picture, right, I think they've been good enough that they haven't really attracted a lot of scrutiny. In the sense that in the sense that they're not so bad that there's massive calls for change or anything like that. But at the same time, I see signs of stagnation, right? I see a team that's kind of stuck in this middle of the pack. Yeah, you'll make the playoffs. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get to the second round and then get bounced. That's pretty much been the Bruins story the last several seasons, barring 2019 when they went to the finals. But even the decision on Bruce Cassidy's job, that's still not really decided either. And I would definitely want to be on the hunt for a manager who can take us all the way. Now, I don't believe in getting rid of people for the sake of getting rid of people, but I don't think that under Bruce Cassidy's tenure that this team has really shown enough signs of improvement. I will give him that 2019 season because during that season he did take the Bruins to the finals, but pretty much after that it's just been mediocre season after mediocre season. And we're with the very real possibility that Bergeron might be out too, because his contract is up and he hasn't really spoken up about whether he wants to stay or not. And if that and if Bergeron is gone, that's a ginormous hole in the team, and I don't frankly have a lot of faith in the Bruins' ability to scout young talent. That's something that's really got to improve, and unless they're able to do that, then they got to go some other route and either do well at the draft or something like that. But barring anything else, I kind of see them kind of sitting in this like mid-pack, middle of the order, kind of stagnating. It's one of those, you're not so bad that the trend is going to reverse, but it's just stuck in the middle. I don't know any better way to describe it.
I think when we talk about kind of stagnation or improving, I'm not really sure how much of a choice there really is, I guess. I mean, it kind of seems like you mentioned, Patrice Bergeron hasn't really said that much about what his plans are, but there are some indications seems like that he's ready to retire. In which case, I know like Cam Neely, the president of the Boston Bruins, was actually, didn't exactly rule out the likelihood of kind of a rebuild type of format where maybe they trade experienced players like Brad Marchand to get some picks or some kind of younger players. So I guess a lot of it does seem to kind of hinge on Bergeron, and if he does stay, then maybe we'll see a kind of similar season to this season next year. But again, if he does retire, then I'm not really sure there's much Bruins can really do but rebuild, because I mean, you think about who they've already kind of let leave the team, like Zdeno Chara, like last season, right? Like another really experienced player. The Bruins have definitely over the couple of years lost a couple of really experienced players, of which Bergeron would be the latest. So if he does leave, then I just feel like that kind of forces their hand on doing a rebuild.
Yeah, it's probably going to have to go back to that like pre-2008 Bruins when I don't know if you remember that team very well, but it was several seasons of just terrible teams after terrible teams, just like cellar finish after cellar finish after cellar finish.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be that bad. I mean, look, they still have a decent core, right? Like Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak. I think
and they do
Jeremy
exist.
Swayman.
And that does exist. To be fair, that does exist. But in my opinion, if Bergeron stays, then it's worth saving that core and developing talent. If Bergeron decides to leave, as Anirban said, I think the Bruins' hand is going to be forced, and you got to rip the whole thing down. And if that means starting from scratch again and potentially tanking for a couple of seasons,
I don't think you need to tank, right? Or like start from scratch, or
because otherwise you're just stuck in the middle.
What do you do? Do you trade Pastrnak then and hope for another franchise scorer like
in that scenario? I mean, in that scenario, you probably just got to. In that scenario, you probably have to let Pastrnak explore his options in that situation, because I'm sure he'll have several takers. Several teams would be glad to take him, because either you got to keep him with the intent of winning a championship, but if it doesn't look like that's going to happen in the near future, you got to start from scratch, and that's not going to happen by being okay for several seasons, which the Bruins have been. They've been okay, but that's the textbook definition of mediocre. But to really break out and really get star power, it's not going to happen through this middle of the road approach. You either got to build talent and keep the core, or if that core starts to fall apart, start from scratch. It's got to be one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see then. I mean, I think obviously like the Bruins have a lot of questions to answer, whether or not Cassidy is going to be back, whether or not Bergeron's going to be back. At least this season did offer like a couple of like kind of like resolutions. Like now we know Tuukka Rask, his career with the Bruins is over. His NHL career is over. And now Swayman looks like potentially the goalie of the future. And he looked pretty solid for like his first year, like starting.
And that's the unfortunate part, right? Because as much as I'm tempted to say that we got to burn the whole thing to the ground, there are several pieces of this team that are still working well, like Swayman. Like he's had a hot start to his career. And of course, assuming Bergeron comes back, he's pretty much like the team leader. Marchand, yeah, he's had his struggles, but without Marchand, like that the core of that team is gone. And
I don't think you need to completely rebuild everything. You just need to sort of like move on from some players. Like you already moved on from Zdeno Chara, right? And now like you move on from
I don't
Patrice
think we have,
Bergeron.
honestly. I don't even know if we have because yeah, I mean, yeah, Zdeno Chara is gone, right? But the Bruins haven't really been the same since. They've kind of fallen into a rut. Not to say that they weren't in a rut before, but
I mean,
I don't think
the
getting rid of
last year they
Chara
made it
really
to the
helped.
second round, right? And this year they lost in the first round. But like the year before with Chara, they still lost in the second round.
I would say
right?
that this team was probably just as good, maybe if not slightly better than the last year's team because like this year's team, we were up against like a really good Carolina team, and they could have shown up in the second round or third round, and we probably would have met them there and lost in the second or third round. But we happened to see them in the first round, so I how far you get in the playoffs isn't necessarily an indicator of how good you are. It's when you see certain opponents, and Carolina is just a phenomenal team. I got to give that to them. So some of it's also luck of the draw, but there are a lot of questions to still be answered within the Bruins organization.
Okay, yeah. Does anyone else want to talk any more about the Bruins? Okay, yeah. It seems like let's just then move on to the Red Sox. They are actually tied 3-3 with the Seattle Mariners right now. Hansel Robles blew the save in the ninth inning, allowed a 2-out home run in the ninth inning to make it 3-3 right now. So, but the Red Sox have been playing a lot better. This week was pretty good overall. I mean, they've gone 5-1 so
blown
far.
saves, bullpen difficulties. When have we seen this movie before?
I mean, so far, I mean, this week was pretty good though. I mean, they went 5-1, beat the Astros 2 out of 3. Pivetta in that final game had a complete game gem, 2 hits, 1 run. And Red Sox won that game 5-1. So far in the series, 4 games, they've won the first 3. Trevor Story has hit 5 home runs, including 1 today.
What a turnaround for Trevor Story, man!
He looks really good right now.
What a turnaround, because like the first few weeks or even several weeks, like he was just, it looks like he looked like a total bust. And now he's just ripping like crazy, and he's pretty like that. Even last night's win, like coming back like from 5-0 down. I think this team has like a certain spirit to it that it didn't really have a few weeks ago. Of course, there's a lot of other things still need to be improved, but I think there's signs of hope right now. They're still in the cellar, but
no, they're no longer in the cellar. Baltimore is now in the cellar.
We overtook Baltimore. Okay, we're no longer in the cellar.
I mean, you're 18-22. I mean, the thing is, they've been 8-3 in their last 11 games, so they're definitely now sort of starting to turn the corner. I think it's just going to be sort of like, can they maintain this momentum now? Because they sort of started off 10-19 in a pretty bad state.
But then again, I mean, like most of this has happened against other like bad teams like Texas, Seattle.
Houston is 24-14. They took 2 out of 3.
But taking 2 out of 3 from the Astros, that one was big. I'd say that's got to be a morale boost for the team.
And I mean,
especially this team that's held on to most of its core and knocked you out of the ALCS last year. Taking 2 out of 3 from them, that's got to be a morale boost.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see then because, they are 18-22. They're currently 11.5 games behind the Yankees. However, they're only 4 games behind the Toronto Blue Jays for the final wild card spot. So it's doable. I mean, we're only in May right now. So
yeah, we got more wild card positions right now, and the playoffs are expanded. So it makes things interesting for more teams. And I kind of like that about the way that baseball has expanded the playoffs. I'm not a fan of expanding the playoffs in other sports where it's already quite big, but I always thought that baseball is a little too restrictive. So I like the expansion from 10 to 12, and the fact that despite how much the Red Sox had tanked, that they're only 4 games out. Yeah, there's always hope. So it's a long season. Although we're close to the 1/3 mark of the season, I think we passed the quarter mark. So, but there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you guys mentioned, I think there are a few players who are really coming together. Like Trevor Story had that 3 home run game, which is, of course, really awesome. And then even the game against the Mariners where we were down by 5 runs and came back really with a team offensive effort. Like it really wasn't just like relying on like Rafael Devers or someone else. It was really a lot of different players involved. Frankie Cordero. There was also like Christian Vasquez. So I think that's also something really nice to see, that that was kind of a sign of what we were kind of hoping this season would be, an offense that was pretty diversely strong, not just relying on like one or two really good players. But again, like you said, Rohan, I agree. Like right now, we're playing the Seattle Mariners. Trevor Story did this against the Mariners. Can he do this against the Astros or the Blue Jays or against the Yankees? You know, these are questions that we're going to be asking now. But the reason that we're asking them is because they've been doing the job for the last couple of weeks. So we can really only hope that this is a kind of a turning page on our season, which is of course still pretty young. Like as you know, Rohan, as well as I do, there are many games in a baseball season. So let's hope that if we take it every 10, 20 games at a time, that we're really starting to see some kind of inflection point here.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule also, I mean, they play Chicago, who did sweep them a few weeks ago. But then after Chicago, they play Baltimore and then Cincinnati, two kind of bad teams who hopefully they can beat up on. Obviously, they did lose the series to Baltimore, but I do think the Red Sox are kind of like the Celtics in a way. Like they sort of started off a little slow, but then they picked it up later. So hopefully the Red Sox can also bounce back. They are playing a lot better now. So it is good to see, but I would like to kind of see some additions in the trade deadline if possible, like a closer, like a full-time closer would be awesome to have.
Oh yeah, we need a good bullpen because like our bullpen is a mess right now. It's a total mess.
I think they have been playing a little bit better recently, though. I mean, Hansel Robles has kind of settled down a little bit. He did allow
like you're in the 8th inning and like you have like a 2-run lead, like that should feel safe. Like that doesn't feel safe. Normally that should be a safe lead, but in the case of the Red Sox, that is not a safe lead.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's the thing. I think that's why I think bullpen's one area they can definitely upgrade at. But overall, I mean, I am happy with the way they've been playing recently. It's been a lot better than early on, and it's still young enough. The season is young enough where I still think that they can make a run if things sort of click at this point. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be our Red Sox take. Obviously, not much Patriots to discuss at this point. So yeah, so that will be it for this week. Obviously, Memorial Day is next weekend, but we should be having an episode then discussing more Celtics, Red Sox, and I guess, yeah, we'll have to see about what else is there. But that will be it for this week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And yeah, we'll be back hopefully next weekend.
All right, peace.